Hello, everybody. This is Maureen, and I'm with the Power of the Tribe. My guest today is Dr. Daniel Signey, the founder of the Center for Men's Excellence. So today we're going to talk about why women why they lost their tribe, and what keeps them from making a new tribe. I'm very excited about this. I'd like to welcome Dr. Daniel Signey. Thank you, Danny, for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Okay, so the mission here is that the Power of the Tribe, we serve women and we want them to become whole again and shine by reconnecting to a tribe and helping them build that tribe. From your experience, what events in life causes women to be disassociated or just removed from their tribe?
So my big focus is on early parenthood. And one really big way that I see women become fairly isolated can be right around the birth of their child. And it's interesting because sometimes there is a real sense of community, and there are like a team of women, be they family or friends or colleagues, or like a stroller strides class that connected with. However, I really oftentimes will see a family setup in which, as soon as they have the baby, it becomes a very child-centered household, and the mom and the dads, but in this case the mom, becomes basically overwhelmed with that transition from woman to mom, and her whole identity becomes the mom thing. And she may have had a perfectly good tribe of women, of friends generally, that she was staying connected with, but can just become super hyper focused on being there and being with the kid, and essentially let some of those friendships wither. And that's especially the case if she has a lot of postpartum depression or experiences anxiety, because when we're not feeling good about ourselves, one of the first things that we do is engage in avoidance and not want to be around people. If I'm feeling really badly about myself, and I'm telling myself other people are going to think badly about me as well. So that's one, is childbirth, and that's sort of my big focus.
Do you think the women even realize this is happening?
I think sometimes they do, and other times it just feels like when I feel anxious, like, so for example, if I feel like I have a lot of anxiety, my baby's in danger, like I can tell myself there are threats, there are, illnesses, or other people are, then keeping other people away, the person, the mom, the woman may not have all that much insight into it, because keeping those perceived threats away just feels natural. I think it's more common that right after birth, that, in that fourth trimester, we call it, after, about a month or 6 weeks or so, if she's feeling pretty isolated, that she'll come to an awareness of, hey, I'm really not seeing other people. And no matter how great her partner is, that person, he or she, is not going to be able to meet all of her needs in terms of support. And so I think generally, yeah, but when you get things like mental health in, or being located in a pretty rural area, for example, where there aren't that many folks around, even if you know it, it may not happen.
So I'm going to follow up with that just a little. That so we're speaking about the woman having this, and that usually it's the relationship that helps to bring both parents to a better place. But are men going through their own fourth trimester, fourth semester? How
Oh,
do you
yeah.
phrase that?
Yeah, so for the fourth trimester, the first 3 months postpartum, yeah, men often very unconsciously will start to sort of let other friendships and relationships go as well. About 10% of men experience postpartum depression, and even more than that experience postpartum anxiety. And this one of the ways that men will try to manage it is to try to get all of their social support needs, all of their closeness and intimacy needs met by their partner. And so if their partner's female, one of the ways that this can play out is if he's really only comfortable getting support and being vulnerable with his partner, and she's female, he can basically absorb all of her time and bandwidth, which can keep her from being able to go out and connect with a tribe if he's really putting all of his on her. It happens both ways, but in this case, we're looking at how women can sort of get cut off from their tribe.
And by the way, the 10% of men that you're talking about, I know you, so I have a little bit more awareness, but the reason why I'm going into this too is because obviously then it's affecting both partners, and where the source of your strength is coming from, that neither one is able to be there for the other, and they're both suffering, and even more magnifies the isolation. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely right. Absolutely right. In fact, when in experiencing postpartum mood or anxiety issues, when the mom experiences it, most of the research is heteronormative, so it looks at like men and women. But when the mom experiences it about 50% of the time, then so does the dad. And the whole idea there is it's because of how important the relationship is. The relationship becomes so important and so central for both of them that when there's difficulty in it, it really impacts each of them very, very.
And needless to say, just on the good day, it causes stress.
Oh yeah, yeah. Which I mean, at a time when you can become. I mean, let's face it. Early parenthood, we're all told it's going to be rainbows and unicorns and it's Hallmark and everyone's happy, but it can also be pretty stressful. Like it can be a rough patch, and it's at a time like that when everyone needs to be getting more social support and being more connected with the people in their lives that care. And no matter how great your partner is, he or she just can't meet all of those needs. You're going to need support above and beyond your awesome partner. It's just a lot of men and women will end up self-isolating and try to make that mistake. And it's kind of a recipe for mental health difficulties, but certainly resentment in the relationship.
And then the thing that you were counting on, and that it's not working right because the circumstances have changed, and so society wise, this is not discussed enough, that you feel like it's only happening to you, so there's no communication either. Then it becomes even something more of another layer, because the thing that you thought you had and it was working great is now not working either. What does that, how does that impact things?
Well, it's when we say, it's not working, it's kind of, well, it's not working in the way that you're trying to get it to work. No one person can do that. And that's why I really love the whole premise of your women finding a tribe is they need a tribe. Like not to oversimplify, but if you think about this as a column of support, and this is the woman, and if she's only got one source of support, then if something happens or threatens that, like any relationship, you have some level of conflict. If it's a close relationship, your boundaries are going to bump up against each other. But if something happens to that, she's just going to fall. However, if she's got 1, 2, 3, 4, she's got 5 sources of support, and here she is, and something happens to one of them, she's still able to be supported. And so that's a big part of why I love this point you're making.
But if you're here, the other thing to look at is how much pressure is here
on this person.
Yes.
That's why trying to do that, it's a recipe for resentment in the relationship.
And they don't even know where it's coming from. They just know they feel it. And then there's another layer of something that I really don't subscribe to, is guilt.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. So this is a phase. So is there a phase in life where people naturally make friends easily?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you look at on the front end of things, these external contexts that bring people together, school, sports, And, later on, what you see as you move through life is it tends to sort of wax and wane. Like, you get through college, then maybe in that first job, and those environments that bring people together that you can connect with become less and less, unless you're really proactive about it. My experience is that you move through life, then those opportunities become less and less and less and less, unless you're someone who goes out and joins a kickball team, or who's really proactive about getting the neighbors together, or joins like a mommy and me, like a stroller type thing. That but again, these pick back up. And again, so I'm focused on parenthood and early parenthood. Once you start having kids, particularly when the kids like 3, 4, 5 start having activities trying to bring you together, be they dance or ballet or soccer or baseball or Halloween, whatever it is that sort of bring people together, then yeah, part of the difficulty is that you can be very isolated even when you're around people. And this is, to me, a really, really important point, because I see this a lot. You would look at somebody and see the person on paper, or you see them out and about in the neighborhood or at work, and you see them around people all the time and simply don't realize that they're actually very, very withdrawn, even though they're in the presence of other people a lot.
So then, first of all, that's hard to identify. Second, as if they were part of your tribe and you were not even receiving this from them, you're thinking they're okay, right? But a tribe takes care of each other. What would you be able to do for them as their support system?
Well, one of the things that I look for is, are we only talking about superficial things? Like especially here in Southern California, it's the like no bad days routine. No, it's all good. Things are great. No worries. Yeah, little Johnny's great. Little Tina's perfect. Okay, fine. People have good days, but particularly if it's somebody that you see over and over and over again, and there's somebody that's in your sphere, but you can tell they're kind of keeping you at an arm's distance. This just may be a boundary that the person wants respected, but you do need to ask yourself, is this the way that she is with everyone? Because if so, then it's pretty likely that the way she's going about things is she doesn't want to be vulnerable to people. Then we need to be careful who we're vulnerable to. It's a risk opening up. The point isn't you just need to have a bunch of people that you're spilling your guts to. The point is you need to have a few. You need your tribe. And in order to really identify who are the members of my tribe, the way that I think of it is if I take a risk and let my guard down and open up about something that I just don't do as commonly, then I'm looking pretty carefully at when I do that, does the other person show respect and seem to take a step back toward me? Because if so, then that suggests there's room for us to really sort of tighten it up and to be able to connect at a deeper level than just, yeah, it's good surf today, nice weather, how's sports going? But to keep an eye out if the person's just really tries to appear bulletproof at all times. That's one of the most common ways I see women and men that are just kind of keeping their cards a little too close to the vest.
Okay, so that could be simply they're not part of your tribe, and that intimacy and that trust that's just not with you, and that's okay. But is there, and that at the same time though, and is there other signs that someone who is part of your tribe that I'm going to do 2 parts on this. First of all, because it's important that I'm going to be encouraging women to start to foster relationships. So the bringing up that, what else signs could you take that they're making a step forward, because it's vulnerable. They're vulnerable to be able to begin that conversation and it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
What is a sign that they it's not clicking? What else should they look for to say, okay, that I'm trying, but it's not working yet, but it will work when it connects to someone else? What other, to say, you know what, I'm not going to take this as me, it's not me, it's them, and I'm going to try another day.
So I try not to be overly concrete about things, but I do a level of, and so communication and relationships can be super messy. Well, when it comes to communication in close relationships, I think of three factors that are pretty essential. The first is, what's the frequency of communication? Daily, weekly, monthly, and so forth. The second is, what's the medium of communication? Texting, calling, face-to-face, social media messaging, and so forth. And the third is, what's the content of that communication? And I break content down into two. One is what we're talking about. Is it pretty direct? Like when I'm talking to you, am I talking about me? Am I talking about you? Like, are we actually dealing with ourselves, or are we talking about that thing over there, that sports, that politics, the weather? And so part of the way that you can tell is if the frequency of communication, if you're trying to step it up, like I'll text her more frequently, or I might call her more frequently, and you're just not getting the response. Or two, when it comes to the medium, if she's downgrading you, like I call her and consistently she'll just text me back. Or I'll text her and I might get an email back like a week later or something. Or, and this is kind of a Southern California, I don't know, maybe this is broader, but like it's around here, oftentimes, yeah, for sure, let's do that means probably not. And you see that a lot, and it's, it's a little disappointing on that front, but it's easier to say than, I appreciate the offer, but I'd rather not. But it is fairly tacit. But when you get to the content of communication, a really important one that can be awkward is if I'm talking to you about, hey, I'm actually decided to take the risk, and so I'm kind of struggling, I just learned my kid's on the spectrum, and it wasn't really what I was expecting. It's going to be difficult. And the other person's like, oh yeah, that's tough, but doesn't reciprocate. And over time, like that can be a lot, things like that can be difficult for somebody to process. I think in order to be fair, you gotta be willing to let somebody else process, think about it. But it's if over time it's never really reciprocated, then that's no harm, no foul, but it does reflect kind of a ceiling effect on closeness in the relationship.
I think that's really helpful because we're at some point we'll be encouraging women to take that chance, and that they're able to recognize where they're are being received or they're not, and it may have nothing to do with them whatsoever, and that's okay. And yet they can feel confident that it will land. It just may not land with that person.
Yeah, I tell people, be prepared. Like, I'll run through this exercise. So most of my patients are men, but it applies equally to women to really be focused. If you're feeling isolated, you basically turn connecting with social support into a kind of project, which is why I love your Women Finding Your Tribe project, because it's so important, and I think it fills such an important gap. It's just sort of understood. People know how to meet each other and people know how to make friends. Well, reality is that gets harder and harder as you move on in life.
All right, so let's talk about. So I agree, and thank you, because I believe women need to shine. So I look at it as there's a woman is a star, and when she loses her shine, she's not as whole. But if she shines individually, she shines. But if she shines collectively, the light is only brighter.
Yeah, she finds her constellation.
Yeah, we're gonna go past the solar system. That's right. We're going out there.
I'm a therapist. I can crush a metaphor. So
good. I'm gonna take you up on that. I'm gonna need them. So all right. So we're looking at. So there's life obstacles, and there's also people have their own thing going on, and every attempt is not going to land, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
The other is that what are the factors do some people carry with them that just that gives them more difficulty even to let that intimacy down and to make relationships?
So all kinds of different factors. This is where you start looking at all these different axes of diversity, like different cultures, different religions, folks that may come from marginalized or disadvantaged backgrounds, like someone who's LGBTQ that may have difficulty connecting with folks out of a fear of being outed or rejected. Folks, as I was talking about earlier, folks who experience depression or anxiety, very likely to avoid others and really, really struggle. I see so much social anxiety playing out. And I have sort of a unique perspective on it because in my office, people are talking about things in a way that oftentimes they're not out in public, even amongst a lot of their friends. There's so much stigma against mental health. And so being able to say, you know, it's really, really stressful to me. Like after I hang out with somebody, I just ruminate and replay it and think over and over what I said stupid. What do they think of me? Like, da, da, da. These are all really common factors that I'll see serve as barriers.
So being out there and being an advocate for women to just feel good and feel whole, how can we help?
So I come at this from from being a male, from my perspective, by really trying to be sensitive to what are the factors that might that I personally, or that in the circumstances where I find myself, might unintentionally keep women down or not be contributing to them being with each other. And so on the one hand, that comes at a more sort of community level, like me understanding what are my biases, you know, for like I try not to do things like assume like, oh, so when are y'all gonna get married? Or when are you gonna have kids? Or like I would certainly never say like, oh, why are you staying home? You know, that sort of thing. But on the flip side of it, at a more personal level, one of the things that I do is I like to ask people questions. You know, it's not an accident that I became a shrink, but like when I'll meet someone, I really do sort of want to know more about them and their space. And for some folks, like, whoa, you know, back it up, and I'm sensitive to that. But for me, in my life, and we were talking about this earlier, you know, before we started this segment, my wife and I have a whole, we call it the family logistics meeting, and we do it on a weekly basis. And I'm pretty consistent about connecting with friends, about going and having lunch, or going and, you know, meeting up or going surfing with somebody. But it can be harder for her to do that naturally. And so one of the things that I do just kind of in our TP is I'm saying, hey, when are you going to go hang out? Like, when are you going to go meet up with your buddy? And when are you going to, you know, go do yoga and, you know, all aspects of self-care. In particular, I do this for her because I love her and I care about her. And I know that she basically, selfishly, she's better in our relationship when she's out with her tribe and she's out connecting and stoking, because how she shows up in those relationships feeds back into our relationship.
So if you're searching for a tribe or being a good tribes person, just to look out for these things that some people may not engage as easily, and when you're working to connect with the relationship, give them that, not necessarily that space, but understand that and how you communicate, and maybe even need to reach out a little more.
Yeah, we're all busy. We're all trying to do all the things all the time. But when you see somebody who might just be a little quieter than the rest, or even if somebody reaches out, like, I mean, go back to what we learned in kindergarten. Just be kind. Be kind to the person and give them a shot. Even if you're kind of like, yeah, you know, I'm set for buddies and I have things to do and I don't have time for that. When it comes to connecting with other people, I think we could all do better in terms of making some space for that. It's one of the top things that I see both in friends and in my practice that tends to fall off, because it feels like a nice to have instead of a have to have. There's tons of social science research that supports that. No, in fact, having a diverse social support portfolio, you know, friends, family, partner, colleagues, like faith community type folks, is one of the healthiest things that we can do for ourselves.
Okay, so again, Again, it's the Center for Excellence for Men that you're the founder
Yeah,
of.
Center for Men's Excellence.
Okay, I was close. Okay. So, and I got excellence in men in there, so I'm good, right?
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So it's my clinic. I established the Center for Men's Excellence basically because within the field of psychology, focusing on men and men's issues gets hardly any play or bandwidth. Like when you study the psychology of gender, you're studying women and these days non-binary or like transgender. You very, very rarely get information about men. And because the stigma of mental health is alive and well, but especially so for men, men are very hesitant to seek help. It's like the old thing, like we don't even ask for directions, let alone help. That's getting better. But my branding around the Center for Men's Excellence is a combination of the fact that I've done a lot of training and have specialized in the psychology of men and masculinity and men's issues. And I wanted, when people see online or they come to my clinic, they see this is not just about like helping broken men to be less crazy. Like this is specifically for men, and we're talking about excellence. We're talking about thriving. So that's where that came from.
Thanks for being brave. So would someone say you're pro man or you're pro people?
Pro people. You know, it's not that I'm not doing this because there's like somehow I'm trying to detract from or have problems with women. And I'll actually get that call. Like women will call and we'll do a phone screen and they'll ask that. Like maybe we want to do couples or something. They'll say, so is the deal where you just kind of take the guy's side? And absolutely not. I certainly work with women in my practice and am happy to do so. It's just that there really isn't much in terms of mental health resources that focus specifically on the men. And it strikes me as both, an issue. It's a resource that we need, but frankly, it's also a business niche that I really enjoy. But I'm all about women.
Well, I would then, because again, I say the tribe, and the tribe is made up of women, but that does not mean that we're excluding anyone or have any, needless to say, resentment. It's just that this is where it's all about helping and playing it forward.
Hey, when you empower women, you make it better for everybody. So I could not be more supportive.
And then I was going to say on that same note that when you make a man stronger, wrong word, when you make a man wholer and more grounded in his strength, his personal strength, you make everything then work better too, because he has more to give, because he has more of himself that he's able to then reach for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what's next? What's next?
In terms of
The life, the universe, and everything. You are the type of person. Okay, so I'm gonna tell them in a little bit. So I happen to be very good friends with Dr. Stigley's wife, and we happen to have become friends because on one of those calendar days we went out to lunch. So I knew. And by the way, this is a fabulous interview, and the content, I am thrilled. But so, and then by the way, for the neighborhood and the Halloween thing, every year his block throws the best Halloween bash in anywhere in California, I believe.
Right.
And don't even talk about the pig roast and all these other gatherings.
You're giving away all our secrets.
Well, they're one of my favorite families. So okay, so all right, we can open this up. So what's next professionally? Is a book coming out or?
I'm working on a book right now.
I didn't know that. Oh, tell us.
You're intuitive. I am actually working on about 2/3 of the way through. It's a book on, guess what, mental health and early fatherhood and new father's experience. I do quite a lot of training and consultation with different groups and organizations that are typically maternal mental health, but they want to better engage fathers. And so I'm doing more consulting and working with different organizations around the country. And I'm also working to expand the center, the Center for Men's Excellence, and bring on some more clinicians and be able to appeal to an even broader group of clientele.
Um, Thanks for doing the work you're doing. It makes it better for everyone. So, where was I going to wrap this up? All right, so this has been a really great interview. Oh, yes, and thank you for coming on. The content that I can give to my audience, that if it helps one person listening, I did my job.
My pleasure. I'm thrilled that you invited me to be on.
Thank you.